Hope with the people who knew her best.
Those empty days without your smile, this torch we'll always carry for our nation's golden child. Even though we try, the truth brings us to tears. All our words cannot express the joy you brought us through the years. And it seems to me you've lived your life like a candle at nowhere, never fading with the sunset when the rain set in. And your footsteps will always fall here along England's greenest hills. The candles burned out long before your legend ever will.
Tonight, Sir Richard Attenborough, Elizabeth Dole, longtime friend Liz Tabarrus, Diana's one-time kindergarten student, Alex Balls, and we'll hear from some of the millions of people around the world whose lives were touched by the Queen of Hearts.
You were the great place to set where lives were torn apart. Goodbye, this road from a country lost without your soul, who missed the wings of your compassion more than you will ever know. And it seems to me you've lived your life like a candle in the wind, never fading with the sunset when the rain set in. And your footsteps will always fall here along England's greenest hills. The candles burned out long before your legend ever will.
In a moment, farewell to a princess. Good evening from London. This is the story of a lovely young princess who cast a spell on the world with beauty, charm, and a tender heart. Her name was Diana, Diana, Princess of Wales. Her story began like a fairy tale, once upon a time. It ended much too soon. Tonight, as we tell Diana's story, we will begin at the end with the spectacular outpouring of love and affection today as the world said farewell to a princess. In the clear, chilly morning, the cortege marched out of Kensington Palace, slowly, into a sea of mourners. Alone at first, escorted only by members of the Welsh Guard. The casket was mounted on a simple gun carriage, draped with the royal standard, topped by bouquets of lilies from her brother Earl Spencer and the sons she left so suddenly, William and Harry. The smallest held a card that said simply, Mummy. The crowd was quiet, very quiet, expressing their sorrow in a great silence. At the same time, those invited to the service began arriving at Westminster Abbey. People who represented all the threads of the princess's life, from the arts to politics to family and friends. At St. James Palace, Prince William and Prince Harry waited with their father, Prince Charles, to join the procession, along with Earl Spencer, the princess's brother. The silence of the crowd was punctuated only by the clatter of horses' hooves. When the cortege reached the abbey, the princess's coffin was borne into the ancient cathedral by 8 members of the Welsh Guard. Elton John performed his new version of Candle in the Wind, rewritten for the occasion.
Goodbye, England's rose. May you ever grow in our hearts. You are the grace that placed yourselves where lives were torn apart. You called out to our country, and you whispered to those in pain. Now you belong to heaven, and the stars spell out your name. And it seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind, never fading with the sunset when the rain set in. And your footsteps will always fall here along England's greenest hills. Your candles burned out long before your legend ever will.
I stand before you today, the representative of a family in grief.
In his eulogy, Charles, Earl Spencer, sounded sad and bitter. His powerful words took direct aim at the press for hunting Diana and at the royal family for binding her in tradition and stripping her of her royal title.
Diana was the very essence of compassion, of duty, of style, of beauty. All over the world, she was a symbol of selfless humanity, a standard bearer for the rights of the truly downtrodden, a very British girl who transcended nationality, someone with a natural nobility who was classless, and who proved in the last year that she needed no royal title to continue to generate her particular brand of magic. And here we come to another truth about her. For all the status, the glamour, the applause, Diana remained throughout a very insecure person at heart, almost childlike in her desire to do good for others, so she could release herself from deep feelings of unworthiness, of which her eating disorders were merely a symptom. The world sensed this part of her character and cherished her for her vulnerability, whilst admiring her for her honesty. There is no doubt that she was looking for a new direction in her life at this time. She talked endlessly of getting away from England, mainly because of the treatment that she received at the hands of the newspapers. I don't think she ever understood why her genuinely good intentions were sneered at by the media, why there appeared to be a permanent quest on their behalf to bring her down. It is baffling. My own and only explanation is that genuine goodness is threatening to those at the opposite end of the moral spectrum. It is a point to remember that of all the ironies about Diana, perhaps the greatest was this: a girl given the name of the ancient goddess of hunting was, in the end, the most hunted person of the modern age. She would want us today to pledge ourselves to protecting her beloved boys, William and Harry, from a similar fate. And I do this here, Diana, on your behalf. We will not allow them to suffer the anguish that used regularly to drive you to tearful despair. And beyond that, on behalf of your mother and sisters, I pledge that we, your blood family, will do all we can to continue the imaginative and loving way in which you were steering these two exceptional young men, so that their souls are not simply immersed by duty and tradition, but can sing openly as you planned. William and Harry, we all care desperately for you today. We're all chewed up with sadness at the loss of a woman who wasn't even our mother. How great your suffering is, we cannot even imagine. I would like to end by thanking God for the small mercies he's shown us at this dreadful time, for taking Diana at her most beautiful and radiant, and when she had joy in her private life. Above all, we give thanks for the life of a woman I'm so proud to be able to call my sister, the unique, the complex, the extraordinary and irreplaceable Diana, whose beauty, both internal and external, will never be extinguished from our minds.
His message sounded a chord with millions. Applause could be heard. The funeral procession, led by a hearse now, wound its way through London's streets, applauded by the crowds, past the palaces and monuments that once were part of her life, past the people who had claimed her as their princess, leaving the city which has reacted in such an extraordinary way to her death, to travel through the country which may never think of itself or its monarchy in the same way again. In a moment, we'll take a closer look at how Diana has changed the monarchy forever, and her living legacy, her sons.
But your greatest gift was your intuition, and it was a gift you used wisely. This is what underpinned all your other wonderful attributes.
God have his way of making us come together, and if one person touches all, it was truly Diana. I don't care if you're white, black, Japanese, African, it doesn't matter.
We love you, Diana!
She was here such a short time, but Princess Diana's impact on the world, the British monarchy in particular, was tremendous, and it will not end with her death. While she is gone, Mark Phillips reminds us a part of her lives on.
What is the legacy that will follow Diana? It followed her quite literally today. Her legacy is the son who will be king, William, walking head bowed behind his mother's coffin. Yes, Diana tried to blow the cobwebs out of the British royalty, but her legacy takes an even more tangible form. She has left behind the future, the hope for the Royal House of Windsor. She has left behind her son. Royal writer Ingrid Seward.
I think she felt, well, I know she did, because she said so many, many times, that the monarchy was archaic and it needed to move forward. And I think she saw William as the guiding light, and that will be her legacy.
If today was a test of the stuff William was made of, no 15-year-old could have done more. While the eyes of the country were on him, his eyes were on the ground in front of him, as if looking for the path to the future that fate has provided.
I think it's probably the hardest day of his life, and he took the hardest day of the nation's life and walked like a monarch, you know, and everybody's heart went out to him.
Right from the moment he was born, Diana was determined that motherhood was her top priority. In fact, many feel the friction between her and Prince Charles began when she insisted on taking the infant William with them on a foreign visit. Royals were supposed to leave the children at home. But this was a royal like no other. William would be swaddled with affection, even publicly. William would be seen to be having fun. William would see the world outside the gilded royal cage.
She was trying to create a different type of king. That's why she took William to visit the homeless, to see AIDS patients, and to see people that were actually suffering. I think she realized it was very important he saw the other side of life.
That's what Diana's brother was referring to when he made that pledge to her today that William's upbringing would not be left only to the royals.
I pledge that we, your blood family, will do all we can to continue the imaginative and loving way in which you are steering these two exceptional young men, so that their souls are not simply immersed by duty and tradition, but can sing openly as you planned.
Thank you so much. Diana's death has now increased the pressure on William. He's expected not just to have his mother's sensibilities, he's expected to replace her in the hearts of the people, and to have the charismatic appeal, historian David Starkey says, that all the other royals lack.
Obviously, the Queen is not charismatic. Her son is not charismatic. Charles, I fear, has had a charisma bypass. On the other hand, William may be.
There was a lot of talk today about how William and his brother Harry need to be given space and time.
But what we must all hope, I think, is that this sudden prominence, this sudden placing of William in this limelight tinged in black, is not going to be permanent.
William inherited another attitude from his mother, an aversion to the press. The events of the past week are not likely to have changed his mind.
We can see a lot of his mother in him today, and I think he will carry part of her throughout his life.
The echoes of the funeral procession have faded now, but its effect lingers on. History walked these streets today, and in a way, the future did too, in the form of a brave 15-year-old boy. His mother's son, her legacy to the country and to the world that had consumed her.
It's hard to believe when you see pictures of Princess Diana in fancy gowns with her beautiful smile and eyes, perfectly coiffed hair. But as a child, Diana considered herself an ugly duckling, gawky and shy. What a remarkable transformation. She would become, as Anthony Mason reports, the best known and the most photographed woman in the world.
Never mind that Diana never became a queen, the cameras crowned her. Her star was born years ago, but the myth is only now in the making.
What's really interesting about the myth of Diana, as it's going to be, is that she was turned into a myth by being married, but it turned out that her true bridegroom was the public.
We were somehow wedded to her that day 16 years ago. The bond was formed with those first fetching glances. Maybe we weren't always loyal to her in sickness and in health, but we've learned our affections went far deeper than anyone ever knew. On that day, she married into the ritual glamour of Britain's royal family. But, says Joan Juliet Buck, editor of French Vogue, this princess was a provocateur in the House of Windsor.
Here was someone who was brought into a very cold family where dignity, stoicism, and the stiff upper lip were basically the three modes of expression. And she was somebody graceful, who took the light well, and who responded as a human being.
She was never a classic beauty. Her nose was a bit big, her mouth a bit small. But even the French, who think they invented style, saw this British princess had something. Actress Anouk Aimée.
She had a kind of freedom, and she was very modern, and she was very glamorous. I mean, I can see her sometimes. She has an elegance when she walks with her evening dresses. She has an elegance of movement, which is often more important than just beauty.
She was exceptional because she could be ordinary. She was the princess who wore biker shorts, a queen in waiting who confessed her eating problems, suicidal thoughts, and terrible taste in men. And we thought,
gosh, she's just like us. And every time she goofed, she was more like a human being. Her vulnerability is the absolute source of the love that the British expressed for her today.
and not just the British people. Her death here in this Paris tunnel 1 week ago tonight made millions everywhere realize that Diana was not just some fashion queen and tabloid curiosity. We actually cared about her.
I think it's the first really democratic princess that exists in the world.
French actress Ariel Dombasle.
She had her head on the stars and on the glamour, and her feet on the ground. And that's why we like her. We love her. And we cried about her disappearance from the world.
We belonged to her in the end more than we ever imagined. It was a mistake to think she was just a magazine cover. The true glamour of Diana's life was the grace and dignity with which she lived it.
Here in London, it's well past midnight, and after having been bathed in sunlight earlier in the day, the Abbey is deep in darkness now, and still they come. This is live from just behind me here in front of Westminster Abbey. Flowers, candles. This crowd has been a steady stream since the hearse left for Diana's ancestral home north of London around midday. And this scene will be here at dawn. Still ahead, Sir Richard Attenborough, the film director, and the man who taught this most public of women to speak in public.
Time is too long for those who grieve, too short for those who rejoice. But for those who love, time is eternity.
We respect her so much for her love that she so freely gave, and she's truly right when she said the greatest disease in this world was the lack of love.
Princess Diana had a magic about her that was captivating. In life, people just couldn't get enough of her. In death, hundreds of millions all over the world were drawn to their televisions to watch her funeral. Only about 2,000 mourners could be accommodated here inside Westminster Abbey, but many more, perhaps millions, lined the streets of London to say goodbye. Jane Robelo was out among them.
Probably one of the saddest days of my whole life.
There'll never be anyone to replace her. Never.
It's just a terrible loss for everybody, I think.
On the streets of London today, the outpouring of affection for the people's princess was everywhere.
It's indescribable. We didn't want to watch this on television. We wanted to be here and feel it.
From the street sweepers,
I see it as she was just like a second queen to us in this country.
to those who'd camped out for days.
How can so many people love one person?
To the children who idolized her.
I want to be with her today because I want to be like, to mean something to her. I just like the way she's got the effort to actually go and touch these people who were ill or some are dying. I hope I can do the same someday.
Alex Valls was a child when he got to know the princess.
I feel that a part of us has contributed to her. I feel she's contributed to our lives as well.
Alex was 5 when the teenage Diana Spencer was his kindergarten teacher.
Diana came around to the school and handed each of us out a slice. It's fruitcake as well, and I believe you can actually eat it still, but I wouldn't dare.
But today, he was one of the millions from all walks of life, from all across this country, united in grief.
I hope she's looking down and watching us all and smiling.
I've met Diana 62 times since 1981.
Colin Edwards is a devoted royalist. He says he never missed Princess Di's London appearances.
I mean, she was the most beautiful woman I ever saw in my life. And now she's gone from us. It's just devastating.
The funeral was the people's opportunity to mourn their princess. Afterwards, at a corner pub, they shared their memories of the day with us. What part of the service today was the most emotional part for you?
I think all of it. Elton John. I think Elton John was the only person that wasn't crying. Only because he was singing it. It's hard to imagine life without Princess Diana. It really is.
Did you need to see the coffin to really believe it?
Yeah, to believe it. We needed to see it, and we've seen it, and... But even now, it still hasn't sunk in.
I think all fellas fancy that secretly. And that's why it's hard on the fellas, because she was so classy and lovely, and every fella dreamed of being with Diana. It's just very hard, isn't it?
We all got to know her because of the publicity. The publicity made her, and it also killed her.
Alex Valls hopes Diana's death is not in vain.
Diana always wanted to help people. And I think that she'd like her legacy to go on.
Everybody knew her. From the road sweeper, whoever you were, she spoke. She knew your name, what you did.
She was the people's princess. That title has never been given, and it suited her perfectly.
So much was written about Princess Diana, this most famous woman in the world. The public felt as if they knew her. Today, I talked to some friends of the princess who really did know her and came here to her funeral. Liz Tabaris, editor of Harper's Bazaar, the fashion magazine, and Sir Richard Attenborough, the actor and filmmaker. Sir Richard first met Diana 15 years ago when Prince Charles asked him to coach his young wife on speaking in public.
She was an immensely shy and almost frightened young woman. The first thing one had to do was to try and give her a belief in herself. But the marvelous thing that I remember most of all was her sense of humor about herself. She was never frightened of falling on her face and managed to cope with almost anything that happened by mocking herself. But her real humor was the fact that when I used to make speeches about things, she would send me handwritten notes telling me what I ought to have done, and that was what I told her to do, and I hadn't done it, etc., etc.
How did she develop into the most publicized woman in the world and a great world beauty, and a woman who mesmerized not only her own native people, but people around the world? How did that happen? She was dead honest, to start with. I mean, beyond anything else. And she had the most phenomenal intuition. She wasn't academically bright. She joked about that. But boy, was she intelligent as far as intuition was concerned. She just knew how to conduct herself and how to deal with certain circumstances. But beyond that, she was courageous. She had, her life really was pretty unhappy very soon after the marriage. It never really worked for her in any great degree. And she suffered great pain. And she suffered great feelings of inadequacy. And she, because of that, had a sense
of what pain and, in a way, dismissal and even deprivation meant. And so in an extraordinary way, somebody who was in pain or who was suffering in some sense or another by rejection or not having a voice, she managed to know how to reach them. In terms of understanding human beings and understanding what compassion and a demonstration of love meant, she was the queen.
Let's talk about your friend Diana. How did you meet her? Where did you meet her? Why did you become friends with her?
The friendship grew very slowly because I, in 1987, became the editor-in-chief of British Vogue. And British Vogue has always covered the royal family. We just recorded her life as she grew into her role as Princess of Wales, which she did very graciously. And then when I came to New York, the friendship continued. And I must say it strengthened very much when I had ovarian cancer. And as always, she was incredibly compassionate and kind as a friend and rang constantly. And my husband picked up the phone one day and she said, who is it? And she said, it's Diana. And my husband said, oh, you know, I was quite ill. Diana who? And she said, it's Diana Windsor. So my poor husband said, okay, I'll put you on. And it just continued from there. And it was a very, I mean, she was very intuitive, which was mentioned in the service today. And occasionally I would be really down. After a bone marrow transplant, I was trying to get my platelets up because I could go home for Labor Day. And they said if they didn't get over 80,000, I could not go home, and they were down at 50. And by chance, the princess called and in the morning, and by the end of the day, they were 80,000. They'd gone 30,000, and they'd never shifted that much. So call it what you will, but the more healing and the more good work she did, the more her sort of spirit got into everybody. And she was so great on the telephone because she was never gloomy. She always had a wonderful bit of gossip or a wonderful, I don't know, joke or anything, just anything to take the person she was talking to's mind off their problems. And she just was so generous. And she was going through, obviously I would think, very difficult times as well, but she had time for everybody, including me, which was great.
What she was doing, how much she was doing, too much?
No, because she had very high energy. She really crammed an enormous amount into one day, into 1 week. And she was so often photographed. And you can imagine the pressure. I mean, she used to come to New York, and one time she came with her sister, Sarah. And in the morning, Sarah went out shopping for, you know, presents for the children. And the princess couldn't go because she couldn't go outside the building because it would be too problematic. And so she had to remain inside. So she was kind of a prisoner unless she was doing, you know, charity work or it was a public function. It's very hard for her.
We all know the myth of King Arthur, the legend of King Arthur, buried on an island, Avalon, the once and future king. Is she the once and future princess?
Very definitely. Very definitely. And I think that when William becomes king, as and when he should, then it will ease the pain. But until that time, there'll be a lot of pain.
Coming up, we'll look at how Princess Diana used the spotlight that shone on her, among other things, to enlighten the world about people in need. Diana had her share of pain in life. Perhaps that is what made her so sympathetic to the pain of others. Representatives of the many charities the princess supported marched in her funeral procession today. They were there for her, as she so often was for them. Paula Zahn looks now at some of Diana's causes and her positive effect.
It was the highlight of the New York social scene. Diana, the Princess of Wales, came to Christie's last June to auction off 79 of her gowns for charity. Before it was over, Diana would raise nearly $6 million for AIDS and breast cancer research. Once again, she was able to turn her star power into real benefit for those people whose voices had trouble being heard.
It is tempting to avoid involvement with the world of AIDS, with its deformities, disablement, and death.
Early on, she took on the cause of AIDS victims. In her first official visit to New York in 1989, the Royal Limo went to Harlem Hospital's Pediatric AIDS Unit. Matilda Cuomo, the wife of New York's then Governor Mario Cuomo, remembers the visit well.
What were your impressions then?
This was a woman who, in her status, at her status in life and lifestyle, could take time, real time, personal time, because she could be doing a lot of other things, to talk about issues that were not glamorous. They were not really popular. I mean, when you think about AIDS at that time.
All too soon, we will all know someone with AIDS. A brother, sister, mother, father, son or daughter could be next. How will we treat them? With compassion and care, or fear and rejection?
To fight that fear and rejection, Princess Diana made it a point to touch those afflicted with the disease.
She didn't have to, but she did it. Up.
Joan McCarley and her sister, Debbie Tate, are the founders of Grandma's House, a home for children with AIDS in Washington, D.C. In 1990, Princess Diana paid a visit, and one little girl wanted to go for a ride in the princess's limo.
We were saying, oh, no, you can't ride. We'll walk around, and then the limousine will meet you. You can't do that. She says, oh, no, let her come. And she just grabbed the child up.
Joan and Debbie say Diana's gesture was more than symbolic. It did a lot to break through the fear of AIDS. And her visit had another impact. The princess gave the sisters $100,000 to buy another house for children with AIDS.
She made a difference on many levels.
Elizabeth Dole, president of the American Red Cross, worked with Princess Diana on another cause, banning the use of landmines.
My association with the landmine campaign began in January when I traveled to Angola with the British Red Cross.
The painful pictures told the story. In Angola, Princess Diana, alongside children whose limbs had been blown off by landmines. What she did was force the world to look at them.
My purpose was to draw world attention to this vital but hitherto largely neglected issue.
How would you assess Diana's level of knowledge about landmines and her level of interest in the intricacies of the issue?
She was very substantive on the subject. My admiration is partly for the fact that she had put so much effort into really being an expert on the subject, and it was not just a passing fancy, it was a passion for her.
And one of Diana's role models was Mother Teresa, who devoted her whole life to comforting the sick and helping the unfortunate. But when Diana started practicing what Mother Teresa preached, some questioned her motives.
There was a great deal of skepticism out there that basically what she was really trying to do was reinvent herself. Was that criticism warranted?
No, I don't think so. I think she had a real healing effect on people. I certainly admire her commitment and her just enormous concern for those who might be underdogs or people who just haven't had a fair shake in life or who have a real difficult problem to overcome.
Joan McCarley and Debbie Tate say they plan to rename the house the princess helped buy in her honor. And the attention Diana was able to focus on landmines has spurred new action in the international campaign to ban them. In many ways, Diana's work lives on, even if her voice of compassion has been silenced.
According to London's Sunday Telegraph, the princess was buried today with a rosary that was a gift from Mother Teresa. In a moment, some thoughts about a family funeral.
Basically, she just cared for all people, and she was just a common person, and that's the main thing. We all love her because of that, and she cared for humanity.
There'll be more about Princess Diana, her funeral and legacy, first thing tomorrow on Sunday Morning with Charles Osgood and on Face the Nation with Bob Schieffer. Some final thoughts now on this day when the bells pealed and the tears fell across England. Great Britain honored Diana, Princess of Wales, not with a state ceremony, but with what turned out to be a family funeral. It is, after all, only at family funerals that brothers speak out about old hurts, that wreaths bear cards hand-lettered with the word Mummy, and that genuine tears fall. Diana's family, those who've called her their own, overflowed Westminster Abbey today. They filled the parks and lined the streets of London and spread beyond. In the beginning, Diana captured the world's attention with her good looks and her glamour. In the end, through her adversity and her devotion to good works, she captured their hearts. She became family. Tonight, Diana rests on an island in an English lake, where perhaps, finally, she will find the privacy and peace that evaded her during her short life. From London, I'm Dan Rather, CBS News. Good night.